lucha-masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Welcome to the Lucha Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week, our team discusses news and events from this past week, covering Mexico-based promotions like AAA, CMLL, as well as top independents, along with luchador-related news from WWE, AEW, MLW, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and more. The Lucha Podcast is part of the Lucha Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and other Central Podcast Network are available on luchacentral.com major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbay. I'm Miranda Morales, the co-host of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast, and I'm going to bring in the team, the trio of the Lucha Podcast. Now, again, I'm Miranda Morales. I'm the queen of soft style. I'd like to take you along on this wonderful journey that we call Lucha Libre. But, you know, I have two amazing co-hosts that I really ride on their successful coattails. The first was dashing Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Miranda. How are you doing?
I am well. Very excited for this episode because we have a lot going on. So I'm really excited to talk with everyone on these topics. It leaves me speechless. So before I just keep on jumbling over my own words, we're going to bring in the third part of this trio. And who am I talking about? Who? That is Brendan Barr. Brendan, how's it going?
Oh, man, I'm good. I'm excited. There's so much going on.
So much going on. Now, I mentioned we have so many topics to cover, and, we briefly want to talk about something that has been taking the internet by storm, something that is quite hilarious, but also a little scary, depending on who is talking about it, who's thinking about. And in passing about this, we were having so much fun that we wanted to share it all with you. YouTuber, social media influencer, and those are all titles I use very loosely because I don't really understand the youth culture and what all of these things mean.
YouTube culture baffles me too.
I'm not sure, but YouTuber Logan Paul had an open challenge to any influencer that could beat him in a wrestling match. And of course, don't throw out a wrestling match challenge and not expect actual pro wrestlers to chime in. And there was, a whole plethora of wrestlers who reached out to Logan to challenge him. And it was for $10,000 as well. So, there was going to be money on the line. And really, let's to it. You don't throw out a wrestling challenge and not expect to get one of the most dangerous pro wrestlers in all of pro wrestling to not say anything. And I'm not talking about Ken Shamrock. I'm not talking about Brock Lesnar. I am talking about New Jack, who replied to Logan Paul and he was going to kill him.
That's exactly what he said. I will kill this, and then he used a popular colloquialism, and but yeah, it was a flat out that's premeditation, brother.
And we know New Jack, Logan Paul, there's a whole TV show dedicated to what New Jack did to someone who weighed like 200 pounds
Multiple
less
people.
than him.
Yeah.
Who he will stab someone just for looking away. So if y'all want to see a dead body,
he stabbed at least a couple people in matches.
I'd like to point out that he said that he liked that kid too. So
yeah.
Yeah.
He has mass transit. What is he going to do to you, Logan Paul? He don't even know you. He don't even like you.
Yeah. Show up with a Wolverine claw. He asks the crowd, y'all want to see a dead body?
Oh. So, Brendan, you had mentioned that you had seen a pretty strong following for Jeff Cobb. Lots of people were throwing Jeff Cobb's name out there and actually murder Logan Paul.
No. So I'm going to set this up a little more. Matt Farmer also mentioned that Logan Paul has actually a strong amateur background and said that he would probably legitimately beat a good amount of people in the pro wrestling circuit. However, back to Jeff Cobb is, an Olympic athlete.
Right.
So he's not just a pro wrestler. He's tried and tested amateur wrestler. So even by that standard, he's there. So again, since we'll round out the trio and all three of us will declare ourselves old here, since I don't understand what he means by influence either. Cobb does have a market started. Cobb send that after this. I'm sure Jeff Cobb would love the publicity and the money with a nice little bonus.
Yeah. He seems like a pretty humble guy as far as publicity, but I think that his fans would definitely love the publicity. He said in an interview recently that he signed with somebody but wants to wait for them to announce it because he doesn't want to take the shine off of them. So he seems to be a pretty humble guy.
In a lot of ways. He's definitely willing to build his brand, and there's not a lot of things you can stay in than appearing at some of these YouTube influencers. Can't speak about us to air quotes. Word.
Yeah, it's a word, however loosely or literal we use it. I think Logan Paul would probably match against Jeff Cobb, whether it's real or shoot, and he probably would lose his life against New Jack. So those are the only things we really need to know.
Or at least some of his internal fluids.
Oh, for sure, he loses pints of blood. Pints of blood.
But I mean, that also it just brought up other fun things. Who else would I love to wrestle? Like, actual shoot wrestle, and he's trying to do pro wrestling. There's so many fun combinations, but any luchador will probably chop him into next week if that's the thing.
That is all true. That would be, and we'll talk about what they do with the new blood in lucha, but
even somebody like Mr. Iguana, he has that Brazilian jiu-jitsu background. He could really get at it.
Yeah, that would be an interesting matchup. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a ringer.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be, and you have La Yesca, who is really the ultimate X factor and all of that.
It really is. And that's exactly the kind of showmanship that Logan Paul needs to elevate his brand.
This is the news show. This is how we start the news.
We got to have our little bit of fun.
We have to have the fun, of course, of course. We are actually a plethora of fantastic, wonderful, interesting news, but that is also the news. This is, you're a fan of Lucha Libre and pro wrestling, you must know that this is something that's happening. So everyone go to Logan Paul, suggest your favorite luchador that he should wrestle. And let's take this a lucha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in agreement with that. So on to actual, Brendan, you have a lot of updates the road back to shows, not only what's happening in the city, but you do have some very interesting come out as recently as today regarding the road back to shows.
Yeah. So, hey everybody, the Mexico City is still orange. I'm going to start that probably for the rest of this apocalypse, which hopefully isn't too much longer. They'll reassess again next Friday. But
You mean the apocalypse is coming next Friday, or the assessment? I just want to be clear.
The reassessment.
Okay,
the apocalypse is here. We are in the middle of it right now. But the fact that Mexico City is orange. There was wrestling in Mexico City. There was wrestling in Arena, Mexico. So we will be giving you some CMLL results later in the show because they did an event. They're not the ones they're probably going to be doing stuff. Promotions have hit the halfway mark of a year, and they're trying to figure out how they can do something. They're trying to make something happen. So here we are with CMLL getting kind of their weird little show that a politician promised them, and other people were kind of wondering why that was going to happen. Officially, Mexico City is still not supposed to have shows with fans until which again you have to go to Yellow and then stay there for a few weeks and even think about it. But they're kind of rolling back. This has been permitted of 30% capacity in the upcoming week. So there's a selling arena. So we may be hearing more with fans too. We're still in this empty arena for now. We've got we're happening. For an event for 9/12. They haven't given details. That El Rey del Norte that they're planning on having on Mas Lucha has put up a very little other than their boy hat speaking to this now. So understanding would be that that's pretty consistent with the region that Mexico, the sort of cowboy theme is a little stronger there, but no idea who's putting it on, who might be invited. What they're going to have. That's the I'm terrible. They're going to be in the versus Yoshika Homaga and Ultimo Guerrero Son Skywalker versus Audaz and Camouflage. So we're once again putting Camouflage and Vegan and well. LA announced the whole press conference for Triple Mania, but I was unable to connect to their stream for details. The universal thing, like other people had issues. The thing. So hopefully next week we will have some sort of details on whatever it was AAA was trying to tell us. And then lastly, a little more on. They also announced filming Fridays. They're going to be filming a series of pay-per-view starts on September 4th and ends on the 25th with an anniversary. And now, we're hoping anniversary shows would have an Apuestas match that looks like it's going to be a champions sort of where many of their titles are online. Someone believes that they had 18 titles. I don't know if we're exaggerating. So that road, we've got lots of strong announcements for more matches. Triple Mania happening at some point would be interesting. The fact probably is they're probably waiting to see if they're going to be allowed to. That is, they did shows in the early days of the shutdown, but have fans clear like Triple Mania. We can get away with here because next week they will be reevaluating, and that will help determine the future of Triple Mania maybe being in Mexico City or maybe somewhere else. But that long list is what I've got on my road to shows. I have just one thing for the roundup. If you can get Dusty's music there,
yeah.
All right. Thank you. I love that.
Sure.
So, Lucha Time, as we talked about, we'll be sending a rest to use events and alliances going there. This week, they did not have a show. They had press conferences. They also had a workout video that was more about like what things you do in a smaller enclosed workouts you can do in your house. So, most we got out of anything indie this week was Lucha Time is very careful about putting up some level of content every week, but it may not be every week. So there you go. That's what there.
Right. Well, thank you, Brendan, for providing us with the road back to shows and the indie roundup. I know we'll be talking more about CMLL show from this past, but today just seemed like such a big rush of news with CMLL announcing that they were going to be doing this series leading up to the anniversary show. It seemed like a bit of a surprise, even though they did have the show from last week that they were going to do these pay-per-views, since they've been fairly adamant about not running shows at all. Is there anything you can attribute to, or same with you, Dusty, either one of you have an opinion as to what do you think made them change their minds as to running a show when they haven't ran anything since March?
Go ahead, Dusty.
I think part of it is, even though they were firmly in line with the Mexico City rule of staying, no shows until they were out of the orange. But now it's been so long. It's unprecedented. Nobody kind of expected it to hang out this long. Movie theaters in Mexico City are allowed to operate at 30% capacity now. And I think that they're kind of trying to build up to that big money anniversary show. I've read that they're hoping to sell tickets at 30% capacity, and I think they're hoping that 30% is better than 0%, and hopefully the iPay-per-view thing takes off for them. This is the first time they've really partnered with somebody serious that kind of knows what they're doing, and so I think that it was motivated mostly by money. They had to do it to stay afloat, and I think it was more of a money decision than anything, but especially after they got the go-ahead from the Ministry of Culture and they kind of relaxed the rules on movie theaters. I think that it was all several elements, but mostly money.
I mean, to the point there, obviously they were feeling the pinch, but they were trying to be good citizens and kind of leaders to the community and not really bending the rules, probably more than other people. I mean, we've talked a couple times about secret shows, and even AAA put on a show that could have been shut down, but it was broadcasting. Doing that, I feel like that was because they felt the pressure to be kind of leaders. So once they had the ability to do shows, once that foot was in the door with that, let's see if we can find a way to keep our luchadors working. Suddenly they were all about working, because they're still technically working within the system, and they can say in press releases that they have medical releases and people, and they're following guidance and being careful. So I think that's to the point. It's always about money. You can't not operate for 6 months and not be worried about your bottom line. But once they're free to do it, I felt that was more of a relief, and let's just get to it and do what we do.
And I think it's been interesting how, especially on this show, we've been documenting the road back and seeing how a lot of the top Mexican promotions and also independents have been handling this scenario with the pandemic in their own ways, from empty arena shows to auto lucha to more scenic shows in random places. I mean, iPaper streaming online. There's a lot, and we've discussed them all really, because at the end of the day, it does seem like all of these promotions are business, and eventually you have to start thinking about, what can you do in order to stay in business. And then long term, how is this going to, be almost the new norm for wrestling? And how do you make that sustainable? How do you reach an audience while also making money? So I think CMLL's approach is also, partnering with Ticketmaster could be the way that they are, really able to make funds or to help generate revenue through this in a very clear way. Whereas in other promotions, what was the promotion that ended up having the show, and they split, or they had it was 2 shows, but then they didn't announce that originally. Was that DTU?
Oh, well, Chaos.
Oh, yeah, Chaos.
Oh, Chaos. Yeah. So something a little bit more structured and transparent than some of the other things out there. So it's to me, it's very interesting and fascinating, and maybe CMLL seems like they're coming a little bit late into the game, but what you both have mentioned, that I think they've just been their time to evaluate and assess their options, and now they've come to a point where they really do need to, start generating some revenue again, and seemingly being able to, take things that they've seen that have worked from other promotions and then, incorporate it into their own.
They do have the benefit of waiting for sure. There's definitely something to be gained if you are in a position to do it by waiting and seeing things that work and things that don't. To your point, the Chaos event could have been better, some transparency so they can know that. The DTU events, if they had worked better with the government or been more secretive about the location, so they had that. Clearly, again, CMLL can't really do a secret show, being as Phantasma closely. It would be very counterproductive.
Yeah.
They had to learn. They had to wait a little.
Well, let's listen to the Road Back to Shows and Indie Roundup right here on Weekly. But now we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo with this week's Lucha Central.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch your favorite shows each week, or when to try a new one. This past Sunday, Jerry Villagrana presented a Spanish episode of Photo Versus on the Lucha Central Facebook page. And he went mano a mano with Mexico's Black Terry Jr., looking at some of their favorite photos of mid-match lucha dives. Even if you don't speak Spanish, you are going to want to check out this video from this one and see some of the best Lucha Libre photography on the planet. Tune in Sundays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern for more each week. This coming Sunday, Jerry will be joined by the photographer known as Speedy as they talk working their way from shooting the indies to the majors and some of their favorite photos of indie talent now in AEW. On Tuesdays, on Mass, Mats, and Mayhem, of course there will be Talk of Lucha Underground Season 1, Episode 14, which you can go watch right now on Tubi.tv for free. But this week, there's also lots of ups and downs over AEW, Raw Underground, and the use of former Lucha Underground stars Karrion Kross and Santos Escobar, along with his Legado del Fantasma. Plus, Casey unboxes the new Mr. T WWE Elite figure and more. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. This Tuesday night, live on WrestleBossLive.com, Bobby Chulo is back to talk pro wrestling and MMA. First, cheerleader Melissa joins the show to talk working as Mariposa on Lucha Underground, being a women's wrestling trailblazer, and the state of women's wrestling today. Then Jiu-Jitsu black belt Richard Areola stops by to talk the Abu Dhabi Combat Club, the world's top grappling competition. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesday. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. This week, two-time AAA Cruiserweight and former AAA Mixed Tag Team Champion Alex Kozlov and AAA commentator Jose Manuel Guillen pull up seats at the table. Find the video version on Facebook Wednesday through Friday, and then on weekends, download the audio version in podcast form. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez. This week, it's part 2 with Los Angeles Misterioso as they talk the controversy surrounding his name, plus his international tours in Mexico and Japan. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring, from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. This week, both shows have news for you on the Lucha Brothers in AEW, the return of CMLL live action this past Friday night, Lucha Time's weekly series, what's next for AAA, and more. Catch up on the top stories of the entire week in Lucha Libre in just 90 minutes. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms. And please be sure to give a rating and review to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
And as always, a big thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central Central.
Oh,
now
yeah.
we're going to be taking it to dust this week in WWE with SmackDown and Raw.
Yeah, we had a lot of lucha action on WWE TV this week, but I don't know if it was all necessarily exciting for fans of Lucha Libre. This past Friday the 7th on Friday Night SmackDown, we actually had a fun rematch for Chikara fans. Lince Dorado versus Cesaro was our main lucha action for the night. Lince and Cesaro have previously worked together and against each other in the recently shuttered Chikara promotion. And if I'm not mistaken, Cesaro was one of his trainers there as well. So there was a lot of history that went into the match before we ever got to the bell. But there wasn't really anything new or exciting in the match beyond like, oh, that's a cool matchup. For Chikara fans. They did nothing with Lince to make him seem like a legitimate competitor for Cesaro or at all. The match was only 4 minutes long. I realize it's hard to get enough good offense in to look like a winner even in defeat, but it felt like they undid all the lucha goodwill they earned with last week's AJ match and all. And I felt like there had to be somebody else that could lose to Cesaro that, hadn't just faced AJ last week and had such a great spot. But that was our main lucha action on Friday Night SmackDown. And then this past Monday on Raw, we had quite a bit of lucha action as well. The show opened with a double contract signing between Seth and Dominic, with Dominic signing his WWE contract, as well as his SummerSlam match contract. Samoa Joe was there to moderate, and he really took Seth to task for making everybody sad with his Messiah complex and said we all wanted Seth freaking Rollins, not the Messiah. And saddest of all, he was cornering Dominic, this untrained fighter, into a fight to avenge his father. Seth said another variation of the same thing he says every single week, but he said that Dominic could bring the kendo sticks to SummerSlam. Then we have a match between Seth and Humberto Carrillo. It wasn't very long. It was only about 3 minutes before Seth got the pin, but that's when everything went nuts. And what might have been the biggest moment of this entire feud on social media, they really beat the hell out of Dominic with the kendo sticks. Murphy and Seth, they wailed on him. And people online have been calling this paying his dues. Some people have been calling it hazing. If you've been on social media this week, you have seen the pictures of the welts and it was a pretty intense spot. And I'm sure that whatever Rey Mysterio went through was much tougher being a smaller guy, always having to himself. And so, maybe this is all part of coming up in wrestling, but it seemed a little excessive to me. But it does give Dominic that motivation and underdog sympathy for SummerSlam next weekend. So we'll see what comes of it. Our next match was Angelo Dawkins defeating Andrade. This was another really quick match, and it mostly served to set up the next match between Zelina Vega and Bianca Belair. And it just felt weird because Angelo hit a spine buster, and then Andrade, he got the pin. Like, it was weird to see Andrade lose to a spine buster. It just, yeah. But it set up the next match, and that was actually the match of the night for me. I don't know if it was the mix of Bianca's strength and Zelina's size, but Zelina Vega and Bianca Belair had an amazing match, and they really showed up everybody on Raw. I hope we get to see more of Zelina's matches. She's a star in the ring. Like I guess, like I say, it's the mix of strength and size, but they worked so well together, and everything they did just looked massive. And the whole time, Zelina's, throwing punches and madder, bickering back and forth, that she did not poison Montez Ford. But at this point, Bianca's convinced that it's Zelina, and Zelina's still denying everything. So we really don't know where this might go. But between this match kind of positioning Bianca Belair with the Street Profits and Zelina with Angel and Andrade, and then on Friday Night SmackDown, we had Miz and Morrison versus Heavy Machinery, and Sonya Deville came out to kind of be their third wheel, I guess, for Miz and Morrison, and of course Mandy Rose with Heavy Machinery. And so I'm wondering if we're building towards some mixed gender tag team matches within, or trios matches rather, within WWE. Yes, something new and kind of exciting, especially for WWE fans. It's just not something we see a lot of on American TV, and I just wonder if we're slowly building to something like the women's tag titles are defended across all the brands, and now each brand kind of has its own 3-person trio building up, and I wonder if it's subtly building to something more in the trios region for us. What do you think, Brendan?
I'm definitely hoping that that's the case. WWE has been notoriously shy with it. However, we are at the period of time where they need to get the most can out there. So even follow the WWE's more traditional mixed gender rules, where only the ladies wrestle the ladies, you still have a very entertaining match with these mixed trios that they are for. I do want to take a second to remind our listeners that Zelina is a well-practiced not just someone that they got in there to give Andrade a little bit of a push when he was falling behind at NXT. She was there. She is
incredible. Yeah.
I believe it was performed in the American Indies as Trinity. Is that the?
Yeah, she was Thea Trinidad, and she was Trinity, and
it showed Trinity the pick that people will recognize. Background, I've to remind a few people on smaller private discussions is a lot more just a really sassy manager.
She can really go. I hope we get to see more of her in-ring work, because especially with Bianca Belair, like, that match was incredible. I couldn't believe more people weren't talking about it. I really enjoyed it. It was the match of the night for me. And the things that they were doing were things that, nobody dreamed women would get to do in WWE someday. And they had a longer match than the 2 men's matches combined. So, that told me a lot right there. That they really believed that those 2 could do something. I can hear you chomping at a bit, Miranda. So give us some of your thoughts.
No, I think that it will probably lead to something, especially at SummerSlam, that isn't too far away, yes, because SummerSlam is more of that type of pay-per-view where you get some more fun matches, like trios matches, like mixed tag matches, and the storylines themselves have been built up pretty good with this whole theory behind Zelina poisoning Montez. Now, it is kind of interesting. I think that if she were to have poisoned someone, she would admit it.
I do too.
She would eventually confess. So I don't know exactly what happened. I do have a theory. So, and I was going to say this last week, but I'm glad I waited because of the fact that I guess she showed up on SmackDown. Is that girl from The Bachelorette, right? I don't remember her name. She's been around. So, at one point,
Demi or something like that.
So she was around, and she was talking with, and, they were very flirtatious. Maybe she poisoned Tez because she thought she was helping Angel Garza get closer to the championship.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know. Still around for a reason. I don't know why. because I thought maybe it's a one and done. I still she is, so I also really can't say much. But maybe she did it because she was trying to help her friend Angel Garza. So that's where my money is. That crazy Montez.
I'm doing the air quotes thing again.
Yes, and when Bianca Belair finds out, she's a dead woman, and that's it. That's also hopefully will be hilarious. I'm a big fan of Bianca Belair personally. I'd love to see her get more involved on the roster. And Zelina Vega, I mean, you're absolutely right. She was brought on as a manager, and we all thought when she was first signed that she was going to be a performer. She is a wrestler. She has here and there. This was kind of the most under one that I remember and I recall. So, now, it is a little bit more tricky because you do have Angel and Andrade up for just a tag team match for the tag team championships. Who knows if they're going to throw in the stipulation that it'll be a mixed, and even if the women pin each other, that helps retain the championships. I'm not sure. It would make. I would say it wouldn't make any sense, but it's also the Raw Tag Team Championship, so there's been weirder things.
I got you. That'll cover you on distribution. That's the silly fact. Review the week right after or something of that nature. So what if SummerSlam match is the mix, the Atomicos? I'm going to just keep calling it that. And the winner of that then has an advantage going to the title match at the pay-per-view the next week.
That's that's another thing I could absolutely see them doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as Miz and Moore, just jumping back to Raw or to SmackDown real quick, that storyline with Henry I didn't expect to like as much. John Morrison, though, I love how, we don't always get to see him wrestle. And when he does, he's fantastic. But to see his personality shine and how well it clicks with The Miz, like that is a dynamic I really do. It makes The Miz that much less annoying, actually, because he's not doing it just by himself. He's doing it with a friend that has that good synergy.
A foil, yeah.
So I actually really, really like that. I think that in Cesaro, that, I thought it was a pretty good match. I agree it was a short amount of time, and it was a little bit of a surprise of, how quickly Cesaro went over. I do think that Lindsay had great offense, and he's fantastic at doing that in such a short amount of time, but I feel a little needing to kind of see. I feel like with Lucha House Party, we have this pendulum swing back and forth. That will have some weeks or some months where they're doing great and have a great rise, and then some weeks and some months where they're, getting beat all the time, or we don't even. So, and maybe that's just their role within the company right now. I do so much to do with it, especially when you're looking at the dynamic of, say, the New Day that's fully functioning right now. You're missing an element of just positivity and great energy, and even that promo that Lindsay did right before the match. That was a lot of fun and one of the better ones I've seen. So why not kind of pull on the same energy that you don't have necessarily from the full New Day and use that for Lucha House Party? I'm just very perplexed as to why that's not something they're looking at.
Yeah, you are very much, we're on the same wavelength. You reminded me of something with the fact that I was thinking of when I watched the match with Lindsay and Cesaro, which is Cesaro was going a few years ago where he would get popular and then it was like he was getting, so they would pull him back into a bad gimmick and then pull him back in some way, not a gimmick, don't want to sound like it was that universal, and then he would fight all that to pull back. Maybe and Grand Metalik are getting too popular for the roles that the WWE wants them at the moment, which kind of that early mid-card era. So they keep pulling so they fit in that instead. But that is another thing I like.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that in comparison to Cesaro, but that's an excellent point because the Cesaro section was so popular. And, I mean, especially, like, right around the time that Tyson Kidd got hurt, people wanted Cesaro to be the next guy so badly. And I mean, like, so yeah, and they really did. They cooled him as best they could. So this may be another example of WWE kind of cooling people they don't want getting too popular too fast or too popular for their spot, rather than letting it kind of happen organically.
Now, all of the results, both Raw and SmackDown, are available on luchacentral.com, so make sure to go and check that out. Also happening this week, of course, on Wednesday nights is AEW. Well, other than that, actually, because we got content all over the place. We have Dark, Dynamite, and the Deadly Draw. I didn't know they actually used.
Love it so much.
Look, I'm a fan of alliteration myself, so that is a +1 for them. And Dusty, you're going to be covering, I guess, the 3 Ds of AEW.
Yeah. We got first. We had Dark. We had Lee Johnson in a losing match to Rey Fenix, but this was an excellent match. Lee Johnson actually looked great in his loss. There was some great spots where he was really frustrating and just pissed Rey Fenix off. Like he just, and Rey Fenix was working Rudo real strongly. I loved this match. Like, everybody should check this out. It's not very long. It's the first match of the show, really easy to catch, and it was excellent. A great opener for the show. And then later in the show, we had a trios match between Aaron Solo, Corey Hollis, and Pineapple Pete, and they lost to Jurassic Express. It made sense to me. They had 0 wins, 0 losses. They were a first-time trio, but Marco Stunt was really the star of this match for me. He did a Razor's Edge to Pineapple Pete at the end, a 450 splash. I loved how the commentary sold his ability to use other people's power and strength against them. That was kind of his greatest strength, despite his small size. So they did a lot for me in terms of story, too, with Jurassic Express. And I really enjoyed this match much more than I expected to, kind of going into it and the way I thought it was going to be thrown together. And then we had another tag team match, the Hybrid 2 and Helico and Jack Evans, but they lost to the Natural Nightmares. Despite being a longtime fan of the Hybrid 2, this also made sense to me. This was their first match back, and the Natural Nightmares have only lost 1 tag match this year, and it was to the tag team champs. So it just kind of felt right, despite not being in what I personally wanted. Yeah. But
not the result I wanted, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I loved how they used Jack Evans' distraction while he was kind of showboating to cut a promo, like looking up to the ceiling to explain how Natural Nightmares got their momentum for the win, because he was just kind of rusty and he wanted to get his point across and he wasn't paying attention. Like, they really sold the first match back feel really well for me.
Yeah.
And now that they've had a chance to shake off some of the ring rust, I'm really hoping to see them on Dynamite soon. I had hoped to see them on Tag Team Appreciation Night on Dynamite. And
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that did not happen. And that kind of naturally leads us to Dynamite. And the main takeaway from this episode was it was supposed to be Tag Team Appreciation Night, but we didn't really have that much tag team action or all the tag teams. There were no Lucha Bros, how can you have Tag Team Appreciation Night and not have your finest Rudo tag team appear? You can have Ricky Morton show up and take a spike pile driver, but you can't get the Lucha Bros. And so the lack of Pentagon and Phoenix made me really salty about the rest of the program. And between the Rock and Roll Express thing and Archer's moment with Jake the Snake, I felt like we had just as much elder abuse as we had hot tag team action on Dynamite. I'm just saying.
It's true.
I mean, it might as well have been elder abuse night, because we got just as much.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm biting my tongue as I'm talking about tag team, because I feel like isn't this whole company Tag Team Appreciation Night? Like, that's literally what we get from this every single week, And I appreciate what they do with tag team wrestling. They put it on the forefront, but don't slap on a title that says Tag Team Appreciation Night when in reality we know it's Tag Team Appreciation Night.
If we were to go back and look over cards, I actually had fewer tag team matches on this card than we did most of the rest of the.
That's true.
Yeah.
On Tag Team Appreciation Night by not putting some highlights from the Deadly Raw, at the very least highlights, if not a preview match. Why not have two of the eliminated teams with each other?
Yeah, exactly. I was baffled at the choices they made for. Well, and I would have been okay if literally every match last night was a tag team match. That's actually what I was kind of expecting at first.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
And the other thing we had last night with Dynamite was some follow-up from last week's chair shot between Sammy and Matt Hardy. It came out in the press after Dynamite had aired last week that Matt Hardy had required 13 stitches to his face. And the story is that there's big heat on Sammy backstage for the chair shot. Matt Hardy himself called the chair shot the most dangerous and reckless chair shot in wrestling history. Miranda, what do you think's going to come out of their storyline? Do you think there's like some legitimate issues there?
I don't know. So, this drives me back to Spears, and he had that chair shot.
Right.
That was a scary shot.
It was.
I don't know if it didn't have the same impact just because of the angle or even just not having a crowd there. I mean, I think that you could do this a few different ways. I mean, when this happened with Sean, in some ways I was a little disappointed that they didn't really use to elevate Sean.
Exactly.
And I think that, I mean, you talk about this was like what Sami Callihan, when that happened in Impact, like Sami Callihan's, having a baseball bat to the eye of Eddie Edwards, that actually really helped elevate Sami Callihan into a very dangerous, vicious man. And I would say that I understand that safety is important and safety's first. But now that that's kind of out of the way, you also then have to look at how can you use this to elevate someone, especially young like Sammy Guevara, to,
exactly.
make him more dangerous. He's a funny guy.
100%.
He's athletic, but we don't see a lot of danger in him. So I would hope that they use this as a catalyst to help him show a more serious side to him. But also that then AEW really just has to evaluate. I don't know, Tori, I've heard different versions of this, so it's hard for me to wriggle in, who was truly at fault. I think there's multiple parties in it. So they do have to be more careful about these spots. They have to be more thorough about it. They have to really run through it and be careful and mindful about how they're executed. But also, why not build on them bringing Sammy and him being dangerous and how he hurt Matt to, get him into a credible threat against Matt Hardy. Like, again, we see him as a funny guy, but, I think this is actually a good opportunity to show Sammy in a new light.
I agree completely. We need to see a more vicious, he is funny. He's hilarious. He works his magic so well, and he does Sammy Guevara so well. But we need to see him as more of a vicious, a tough, a nasty man sometimes, so that he can be taken seriously as a competitor and like a legitimate threat. And especially as he gets older and kind of makes his way up and moves up towards the top of the card, like right now he doesn't feel like he would win the AEW championship if he challenged for it. But they have done so much with Sammy in the last year that I think in a year from now he could easily be if not a champion, at least one of the most legitimate competitors for the championship.
So I've did some research and done things on this too. But first off, I wanted to touch on the point of the multiple. My first reaction when I heard this was another chair shot that went wrong. Was disappointed that so many people were blaming Sammy because AEW has, to the point Miranda made, this is the second time that the wrong chair was used and someone has gotten hurt.
Yeah, why do they even have the wrong chairs available? That's just bizarre to me.
There it is, right there. That's if
where is this chair placement? Why is there not right signage to say good chairs, bad chairs?
Yeah. So AEW, in my opinion, needed to do more to. Sammy is the younger guy who has a script for the bit. It was not a wrestling segment, and he was supposed to pick up a chair and throw it at that point. He couldn't find the right chair according to his version of the story, and clearly he had the wrong chair in his hand when I'm back on watch the footage. It was one with cushioning and padding on it. There is a good 5-pound difference between the two, and more. But he needed to throw a chair, and he needed to throw in under a minute. So what else was he supposed to do in that situation?
I agree with you completely.
He doesn't have season necessarily to figure out a good way to improvise that, which and then this brings me to more of that. I think Matt Hardy's comments on Facebook are him trying to work this up a little more.
I do too. I love the way he's been kind of building this up online. This has been awesome for Sammy and for Matt. It explains Matt not being able to wrestle. It keeps him out of the ring, kind of limits his exposure that way. And so we don't really kind of see how old and, kind of broken up he is in spots. And it lets him play to his greatest strengths. I mean, he cuts an amazing promo.
Yep, exactly.
And so now does amazing online work. I mean,
that's where I was going with that. And he has next level social media game. And I feel like that's exactly why I went to. He is working the audience up. He knows that his fans are smart fans. So he's going to play to the fact that they're smart, and he's going to go places they're looking for him to not be in kayfabe and say things like that to get them worked up and much more interested in this whole thing. And then Sammy did the same thing on his vlog. I don't know if you guys have watched his vlog yet or not, but it opened.
No, I haven't got to see it today.
Nope.
Yeah, it opens with him in the car with I believe Slow Rider is driving. I'm not sure. And cool. they do this funny little spot where Low Rider's a bad driver, and Sammy just keeps imitating the things that were said on television. They were it's like, no, you're right, Sammy. I am a bad driver. I've been doing this for 13 years. It was reckless and irresponsible, and you know what? I did it on purpose. And I was like, okay, so they're throwing shade at each other on social media, and then you even had the had two spots on Dynamite where you had first off you had Matt Hardy attack a referee who vaguely liked Sammy. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. They were interviewing him.
Yeah, that was hilarious. He had a leather jacket, a backwards cap.
and the right, he was just about the right height. It was great. Where they're doing picture and memo about being in Matt's head. So they are doing, they have to make him a little more dangerous and a little more. And I feel like they're working their actual audience and not just their imaginary teenagers of 18 to 24 audience. They're working the people that love to watch AEW. So you may get what you're looking for on that.
I hope so. And really quickly, we also had the deadly draw. Diamante and Ivelisse defeated Rachel Ellering. There we go. And Dasha. It was really cool getting to see Dasha in the ring. I believe her only other match was a women's trio match, teaming with Becky Lynch and Dana Brooke. And by nature of steel sharpening steel, she should have a really interesting career if she continues to work with such high-quality talent. But despite Dasha's unbridled enthusiasm, Diamante and Ivelisse worked together like a real team, and they won the match. And I'm excited to see these two ladies go forward. I hope that we get to see some of their tag team action on Dynamite soon.
Well, so we will get to see them on Dynamite soon because they said the finals are going to be on, so.
Excellent.
Yeah, I believe they have one more round. They have the semifinals this Monday. They're going to be going up against Ty Conti and Anna Jay.
I apologize. I did overlook. You are correct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look. Let's just say to spade. We know that they're going to the finals. This is what this is for. They're going to the finals, or someone's going to hear from, or we're going to have a problem. And we're also going to have a problem if they get to the finals and lose, because let's be real, there's a big concern that a lot of this was already set up just to push the Nightmare Sisters. They have their semifinal match against Little Swole and Big Swole also coming up. That's going to be a very good team, admirable team. It's going to be one thing for Little Swole. I'll see what happens. But if we get to the finals and Ivelisse and Diamante are not winning, we have a problem. I'm just putting you on notice for that.
Also, Big Swole and Little Swole props. They are a legit tag team, too. I'm very happy that I have two super tag teams that are shimmer tested. That should be our final. I think we said this last week. But again, that should be the final. So we'll see what happens. I agree. If we did get a Big Swole, Little Swole, Ivelisse and Diamante, that's the real, to be honest. That's the realistic finals. But since Brandy Rhodes involved, and I get it's part of her character and her gimmick. Even this week, she took her little action figure to the ring. I get it.
Two of them. Yeah.
It's an elevated version of how she plays. However, play me, EW. Do not test me. If you do not think I will not keyboard warrior this, and by keyboard warriors, I'm going to walk my way to wherever you are at and let you know how wrong you are if you don't make Ivelisse and Diamante the winners of this Deadly Draw tournament.
If it's a Andy thing, they lose in a way where the master sheet. Like, I'm okay with that as a possible outcome, but even there, I still think that we should have the facing each other, because that elevates the whole tournament more than putting and Brandy's gotten back on long before she logged off to be aware of that.
Oh, well, I'm just going to let it rest for today. I've worked up on myself back down. Also,
I'm with you.
Yes. And a reminder to those who are listening to Dynamite for next Wednesday. We'll actually, on Saturday, August 22nd, do NBA action. So we actually won't be talking about Dynamite next week on this show, because of the move on Saturday. So we'll be probably talking about EW, but next week you'll have to just wait a little bit longer in order to get our thoughts on the August 22nd edition of Dynamite.
We will also do a tag matchup, though, which, based on what I just heard from two of us, there could be a lot of things to say if
this does not go our way. Expect some trouble.
Just want to point it out. So if you are looking to prepare some drama,
you have been warned. You have been warned, Internet. So jumping on to NXT, we had few segments regarding luchadores and lucha libre, and a lot of things setting us up for TakeOver 30. This week, the episode started with Karrion Kross and Danny Burch in a fairly quick match, but Danny Burch came out very strong, very fast, aggressive, knew that he had to get to Karrion first in order to make any headway. But, however, Kross made pretty quick work of Danny Burch with, I believe, the cross jacket submission maneuver. After that, to the ring with a contract in hand, and apparently he was able to convince William Regal to make the match official for TakeOver 30, Karrion Kross versus Keith Lee for NXT Championship. Keith Lee had this pad and paper ready. Scarlett then took the pad and paper, took it to Karrion. At this time, Keith Lee is in the middle of the ring. Karrion is outside of the somewhat of an interesting way of signing it. I don't know. You could tell he was trying to do a cross, I guess, an X. I don't know. For some reason, I really focused on how they were all looking and signing this paper.
Yeah, it was funny.
It was kind of funny. But not so funny is what happened after Scarlett, the pad with the contract back, to see a close-up of Keith Lee opening the pad folio where the contract is, and a quick flame came out there, damaging his face and his eye. And that's
fireball comes right out at him.
Fireball. Trick of the book. You know this. You should know this. Very, very well-known trick. And, of course, we're in Kross's character with the end of the world and TikTok and, all these apocalyptic thing, it does not surprise me that was what happened. So they even followed Keith during the remaining of the first match. That they really followed him and had a separate camera on him the entire time doing a split screen. So they really did their best to sell this injury that could affect him going into TakeOver 30. But it is official. Gentlemen, we have Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross for the NXT Championship. Brett, I'm going to go with you first. How do you feel now official for NXT TakeOver 30?
I mean, I don't feel a lot different than I did before. I'm obviously very excited for the match, but I kind of knew this was always coming. The fireball spot, first off, I thought it was a unique way of doing it. We've seen a lot of fireballs in wrestling over the years, but out of the contract signing, that's kind of a new and fun way to do it. And it seems obvious they're trying to make Keith Lee look very vulnerable going into this match, because even though Kross has been strong in all of his matches, they really want people to be afraid that this is a legitimate chance that Kross is going to win this. And I do like that. I like that a lot, that they are making this a big show and a big deal, and this isn't just I'm going to do a match and so I really like that. That's what the level of respect that Kross is getting out of this.
Yeah, Dusty, what are your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I don't know how official it is if your contract literally turns into a fireball and burns somebody on the face. Like, I mean, I feel like the signatures probably aren't still there. So. but we know now, and I'm really excited for this. I enjoyed the fireball. It's been a while since we had a really cool supernatural wrestler. Bray Wyatt was kind of one, The Undertaker, of course, but NXT hasn't done a lot of supernatural. It really sets Scarlett and Karrion apart. It helps make this thing more unique. I really am excited for what they're building for. In wrestling, a lot of times, I feel like the sign that somebody is going to be one of the guys is that their thing is unique, and that they give it time and kind of push it. And it is unique, and Karrion and Scarlett have really hit on something unique together. That is, their dynamic is different than a normal manager and wrestler. The presentation is wildly different. His build, his body is different than a lot of people's. Like, it's just awesome to see him get into the ring and get a hold of somebody. And so I think there's so much promise here, and I think that they're going to capitalize on it. I would hate to see Keith Lee lose this soon, but at the same time, if he loses to Karrion Kross, I'm not mad.
Exactly. And I have to echo what you said about the presentation. It is literally one of the best present in pro wrestling today. That is just so hypnotic. And the fact that it's done without a crowd, the essence of it, I think it's just very, very cool. They've done
all of this without a crowd, which is mind-blowing.
That is a true success story. It's one thing when you have the crowd behind you. The crowd's going to get it. Doesn't matter. The fact that they've built it as well as they have now is fantastic. I do also want to touch on another match. This is really, what we watch NXT for, is Santos Escobar versus Tyler Breeze. This came as an effect of last week, where Legado de Fantasma kidnapped Fandango, and after sending a message to Breezango of their mockery of Lucha Libre, Tyler Breeze tried to help Fandango out, but he was beat up. Now we had an official match between Santos Escobar and Tyler Breeze. Interesting note that Santos did ask the rest of Legado de Fantasma, Joaquin and Raul, to stay behind. They all were going to come to the ring together, but then, Santos said, no, I have him. So a very athletic match, but also very quick when we saw Raul and Joaquin back to the floor, a little bit of a distraction, and Santos Escobar winning. However, shortly after that, Fandango came out with mop handles, trying to even the odds. He broke them up before he got into the ring, evening the odds, but still was being overpowered by Legado de Fantasma. And then finally, after a few weeks we haven't seen him, Isaiah Swerve-Scott, because Santos specifically mentioned him in his promo last week for Isaiah Swerve-Scott to keep his name out of his mouth. Well, Isaiah Swerve Scott came out because he'd had enough. So
yeah.
This is
only
very
man to beat him too.
That's of this new build of Legado de Santos Escobar. Isaiah Swerve Scott is almost kind of like the Achilles heel. Is the one who may know how to. So it sets up a very interesting story as we go into next week. We do have a 3-on-3 match announced for next week's NXT, Legado de Fantasma versus Tyler Breeze, Fandango, and Isaiah Swerve Scott. So we know for sure. I am a little concerned that we don't have information or build up quite yet to a possible matchup at TakeOver 30. That is something that, we could obviously have Santos Escobar versus Isaiah Swerve Scott. That seems to be the direction they're going to go in. But, also next week is the Go Home show, TakeOver 30. So if we don't really see any result coming out of there, that means we are not going to see the Cruiserweight Champion at TakeOver 30. And especially that since they've rebranded the Cruiserweight Championship as the NXT Cruiserweight Championship, I hope that is featured on that show.
I do too.
I normally, when as an old school wrestling fan, when I see a 3-on-3 match in the Go Home show episode, there's one singles wrestler on each side. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the setup that I get. Like that's pretty.
That's what I'm hoping for too.
Pretty old school wrestling, which is one of the things that makes NXT popular with more educated, older wrestling fans, is that they seem to like to do those that style of storyline that we grew up on. So
yeah.
I'm expecting something to come out of this match. It's going to be like an unsatisfying finish, and somebody's going to demand a rematch, and then they'll do something at TakeOver.
I hope so as well. And again, the results of NXT AEW are all on Rumble.com. Every week you are visiting there to get all of your reviews. But next we're going into something we have not done on this show so far. This is very exciting. We are going to be doing a review of CMLL and their show from over the weekend. This was a surprise. Brendan, you had teased this last week, literally during the road back to shows, that this was somewhat of an announcement was going to come. And sure enough, we got the word that CMLL was going an online show. And yeah, at the time you're going to be sharing the results of that.
Yeah, if you were listening last week as we went on the air, the show happened shortly after the show went up. Maybe it was I don't know. But, gave us 3 matches. There's a rumored 4th match but nobody has results, nobody has pictures, so I don't know. They were all 1 fall. Oh no, I'm sorry.
I believe there were 3 falls.
They were all 3. They were all 3. This was right. I'm getting ahead of myself here. The 1 fall is what people are predicting may happen at a future show. They were all 3 falls apiece. Actually. If you read your actual notes, it's just guessing. This show felt very much like a CMLL Sunday show, where you have a lot of feel-good endings. You have a lot of stuff for grandma and the kids there. The tourists and that sort of thing. I'm going to give you a vague spoiler. All the good people won in these matches. Like it was, they were all Technicos won. Started off with a ladies match. Go shooting away from me, thanks, computer. I never say her name right. I have tried for many years to say her name, and I always choke on her. So one more time for me.
La Jarochita
and Sinele versus Amapola and Reina Isis, or they like to say Reina Isis. I came in the middle of this match, so I missed the first fall. It was very much, like I said, kind of like the Sunday kind of work that they do. They didn't do anything extra with it. There was some good locks. There was I think a top rope spot, but most of the ladies don't like to dive to the outside, and it felt solid. The Technicos did get this. It was 10 minutes worth, almost 12 minutes worth of match. Then we had Guerrero Maya Jr., Stuka Jr. versus Okamura and Vangelis. And this was 15 minutes worth of match. And it really, like, I don't know if everyone listening here has experienced the joy of seeing Guerrero Maya and Okamura going 2 out of 3 falls fairly regular basis, but it felt like I loved it because it felt like I was back to normal wrestling. Well, yeah, I mean, more than just that, like, because it was so much of a return to CMLL, like, standard programming, seeing those two in the middle of the card doing trading falls, I felt like I was back to my normal Friday night of watching CMLL before going out to one of the local indie shows. It really put me in a nice, happy place. Again, the Technicos won this. There was no doubt from the first fall forward that they were going to win it because it was very formulaic, but in all of the best ways that you can be with that. Like, it did not hurt me at all to know how this was going to turn out. I know mileage will vary for some people on that. Finally, we had Angel de Oro, Caristico Star Jr. against Gran Guerrero, Templario, and Terrible. And I mean, again, this was just like, yes, please. Like how nice it was to finally see all of these guys wrestling. Terrible was still wearing a Ingobernable shirt, so I'm happy, even though I don't think that faction is actually doing anything in CMLL anymore. And I failed myself there.
It was about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it would make sense. If the middle match would they would be at least 15. I was thinking it was probably like 17 to 20. Again, another fun one. They lots of more double teams. You got pretty much a kind of a highlight reel of all these guys like moves.
Yeah, it was really cool. It reminded me of the type of wrestling that used to be on Saturday mornings, like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like it was a throwback to that, and I loved the fun of that.
I very much equate the Arena Mexico Sunday shows with Saturday morning kind of family wrestling. They're very in the same vein. I saw both of you in the live chat. I saw Dusty advertising us, and I had a little warning.
Repping the Lucha Central.
Yes, he knows the brand.
What do you think about this?
For me, I'm still fairly new to CMLL, but I do feel like in a lot of the reruns that I've watched, which were more on the Saturday morning type of circuit, it's very reminiscent of that. It was a little bit of a slower pace for me, which is just something that, compared to everything else that is available now, both in the American product and even some of the things we saw in AAA recently, was just a different pace. But, I thought it was a good venture out into, this new world of professional wrestling, and it was refreshing to see something different. I do think that they'll have to kind of evaluate what they want to put on TV. One thing that I found really interesting, and we joked about this, AAA did this with the Lucha Fighter series, but now seems normal now because of that and other sports, is the background noise. They had the background noise on the whole time. And at first when we saw this, with the Lucha Fighter, we're kind of laughing at it. But now we've seen this in all professional sports now. Baseball doing that,
everywhere.
basketball. So, those things, that's why I kind of mentioned that I think in some ways, and you seem to talk about it too, Brendan, about how, being able to wait this long and being able to see what other companies have done and being able to learn from that may just be helpful in putting together a good product. But I do think that for television, was an empty arena, they may have to evaluate, what they produce, because I do think too the pace was a little bit too slow, in a point where when you have normally a crowd there to interact or to play off of, it doesn't feel as slow. But when you have nobody there, you don't have any, and it's a little bit more easy to see those types of flaws. So that's my only about it.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong in a lot of these ways. There's flaws with it. CMLL is slower. They've always been slower, and especially since you're 2 out of 3 falls, the pacing is going to be dramatically different. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you still enjoyed it with times. I think CMLL's more traditional approach to lucha really appeals when I'm in that place that I want to watch more old school wrestling. So,
yeah.
And Dusty, you had a few thoughts. It sounded like.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I like the old school feel of it, the Saturday morning feel. Sometimes you just want to sit down and relax and kind of let your mind float and just watch some wrestling for fun. And this was perfect for that. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is our takeaway. CMLL is very enjoyable, so enjoy it. I believe we have footage up on luchacentral.com, and if you haven't recognized that, that's my segue into my favorite bit here. So if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's time to do it. LuchaCentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards. Seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of all of this, free. You can go watch all of this or read all of it. LuchaCentral.com.
Best deal on the internet.
That's right. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things.
And now it is the part of the show we love, you love, we all love. It is This Week Libre.
You can't remember when. Well, now you can say it's time for This Week in Lucha Libre.
That's right. Now it's time for This Week in Lucha History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre History by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, and amazing videos all about Libre. That's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week, October 14th, 2010. Jushin Thunder Liger won the CMLL Universal Championship after beating La Sombra/Andrade at Arena Mexico in Mexico City. This is my favorite run of Jushin Liger's. He had an amazing Rudo run all summer in CMLL in 2010. The setup for this match was a tournament over 3 Super Viernes shows, with Liger having already beaten Negro Casas, Hector Garza, and La Mascara all in one night, the previous Friday, and then this Friday, Jushin got his championship by winning 2 out of 3 falls, but the final fall and some amazing Rudo work was thanks to Okamura distracting La Sombra, grabbing his leg, and then when the ref went to chastise Okamura, Jushin Liger ripped off La Sombra's mask and snatched him in a cradle pin before the ref could see that the mask was off. Like I said, Jushin Liger was an amazing heel on this run. Andrade hinted at a mask versus mask match afterwards, which actually culminated at the 77th anniversary show in a 14-man Luchas de Apuestas steel cage match. But yeah, this was, if you like Jushin Liger and you're not familiar with his CMLL work, you should check this match out. And even if you are familiar with the CMLL work, you should head over to luchacentral.com and check this match out because it's amazing. What did you pick this week, Brendan?
So I had to take an easy way out. There was an entire Bravo Escato event that I was going to cover, but I just ran out of time because so much juicy stuff happened that I was too busy researching. So I did go with this week. I'm going to go with the standard format. This week I chose August 15th, 1977, where Lou Thesz was proclaimed the first UWA World Heavyweight. Now right? So the UWA champion was largely held by a promoter gone to the wayside at this point. I've mentioned before a few times El Connect defending that belt. He had a long run in the 80s of defending that against by proxy defending Mexico against foreign wrestlers. So Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Baba, several others from around the world. It is so to find that it originated with a very notable grappler wrestler, Lou Thesz, and knowing that is a style that was very popular in Mexico at the time and still is. I just thought that was a nice little tie-in.
Very cool.
Yeah. As I was researching, this is a belt that you'll sometimes see Dr. Wagner wear when he comes, Dr. Wagner Jr. specific, when he comes out to matches. If you use him particularly with the belt you recognize, that's probably the UWA World Heavyweight Championship. I don't believe he's actually ever going to defend it on television, but it does place around his waist, so he's going to wear it and rock that bling. And again,
it looks good on it.
So that was my easy. I had too much work, but still managed to find something interesting. But Miranda, you had something fun.
Yes, so I definitely went out of my comfort zone this week, and I picked August 15th, 2009. Caristico won the IW Junior Heavyweight Championship, beat Tiger Mask 4.
Yes.
Remembering my Roman numerals, at the G1 Climax, New Lords, New Laws. This one totally announced in Japanese, so I absolutely understand what it's like when people are listening to broadcasts in other language now, specifically in Spanish, and you don't understand what is going on. That was my experience with New Japan match, but. It was, and I mean this in a very endearing way, it was just a beautiful match head to toe, beautiful pacing, beautiful moveset, both men in the middle of their hands, and it was just carried with so much just grace. And I know I've seen New Japan matches before as well, so I know that the crowd is compared to American audiences and even Mexican audiences. Very calm and respectful. So the silence in this match is not out of disrespect. It's only out of respect of the two competitors in this ring. And it was just a beautiful match. Very slow at first. They were feeling each other out. They were just getting a sense of each other in the ring, and it slowly up in the pacing. I think what surprised me was the end. I actually blinked for a second and thought I missed it, where I believe it was a head scissors that Caristico used and quickly turned that into an arm bar. And just like that, he had Tiger Mask tap out. So it was such a beauty. But the sportsmanship, just the wrestling in this was just lovely. It was just beautiful. And again, I mean that in the nicest way. And even learning more about this, Místico had only been in New Japan since that January when he made his debut at Wrestle Kingdom 3. And at that time, he laid out wanted to challenge for the IW Junior Heavyweight Championship. He did defend his CMLL World Championship at a New Japan show in February of that year. And then he took some time off and came back in August. So at this point, he had only been with New Japan just that year. And actually, before this match, he had a match where he teamed up with to defeat Okamura and Tomohiro Ishii, and then a few days later beat him for the IW Junior Heavyweight Championship. So the fact that he did time, I think at that point was just his third tour with New Japan, I thought was phenomenal.
And very impressive.
Mask and entire and so slick as well. I think that this is, you're talking about a nice, talked a little bit about CMLL earlier, and that being kind of a nice, program to watch. It's just lovely. This would be like a match that I would like sit in front of the TV with tea and even a dress. I felt so informal watching this. I felt like I should have been more formal because it was just a beautiful match. I don't think I ever had this feeling before of looking at a match and just saying, wow, this is beautiful. It's lovely.
I do want to help your education, since you did go out of your comfort zone. You described Mystico's finish there. That is La Mystica. It is the name of that, and it is a sequence where he starts with a head scissors and ends up with his opponent on the mat in an arm bar. It's very sudden. Yeah. It's always very exciting. It is so one of the reasons why he's a very popular wrestler, because it can come from out of nowhere and it looks spectacular. Yeah. Just so when you're watching more of your matches, if you start to see him up in that head scissors and be ready, it could be over.
Yeah. Man, yeah, that was the quickest part of the match. Everything else was very kind of at a different pace, but that one, you're absolutely right, happened out of nowhere. I had to actually rewind and watch it again, make sure I caught it.
I've had to do that a couple times. Where did that start? Oh my goodness. So yeah, you are. That is how you enjoy some Mystico matches, in my opinion.
Yes, as Dusty mentioned, that this week in Lucha Libre history, this day in Lucha Libre history is featured on luchacentral.com every day. You can let us know about some of your favorite days in Lucha Libre history. Reach out to us on social media, and we'll be telling you where you can do that later on in the show. But it's a wonderful way of more about Lucha Libre facts, births, deaths, championships, events, everything there, and from all over the world as well. So you'll also have some cool dates and information from CMLL, AAA, WWE, and even, promotions that don't exist anymore. So highly recommend that you check out Lucha Libre history on luchacentral.com.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have a short commercial from one of our partners, thechairshot.com.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
All right, big news coming out of Hollywood, California. This week, the United Wrestling Network, the National Wrestling Alliance, and Thunder Studios announced that they're going to be partnering a all-new live weekly professional wrestling pay-per-view that's going to be on national cable/satellite television and streaming on the Fight T app. It will be called the United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live. It's set to be a 90-minute show of hard-hitting, can't-miss action. It's going to be premiering Tuesday, September 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's going to be originating from the Thunder Studios Long Studio. This is a fairly unprecedented new series that's going to be a grand showcase to competitors from all regions and different across the globe in their quest to settle real-life feuds and attain championship glory. And this is with an emphasis on the National Wrestling Alliance and United Wrestling Network Champions each week on UWN Primetime Live, anything in the ring and behind the scenes. Now, this is pretty big for two different aspects. Of course, we have the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, that came back with a boom almost a year ago in September with Thunder and with Power. That was, that made a mark. A lot of people were very excited about UA and the comeback that they had on YouTube. And of course, especially anyone familiar of West Coast Wrestling, the United Wrestling Network with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Champ from Arizona. I believe there's also Championship Wrestling in other areas, of course. I believe Rocky Mountain Pro and some other promotions out there. But especially Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. A lot of West Coast wrestlers, people that you now see on TV, made their way through the United Wrestling Network. And the fact that they're going to be partnering NWA for weekly television, We're just lucky to be alive in this time frame. Yeah, Brendan, I want to get your thoughts because you're also a West Coaster like me. So for us, this was pretty cool news to hear coming out of this week from the United Wrestling Network and the NWA.
That was destination viewership for some of us on Tuesdays. So I'm excited that they're filling that slot because the NWA is affiliated with that, and that's kind of keeping that alive for now. They definitely suffered some setbacks where one of the driving forces behind Power stepped down after a number of allegations came forward. So I'm happy to have the NWA and also the UWN by extension on Tuesdays. I still watch UWN programming regularly, so having more access to that is great too. But yeah, to the other part of that, we've seen a number of people come through there. They used to have the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood used to have a great relationship with the NWA. Their belt used to be the NWA belt. Like I still remember watching Colt Cabana win the NWA belt. That was after a really long chase, and like that was very emotionally satisfying. So this just feels good and natural, and I cannot wait to see so many of my West Coast performers there show up and really have a chance to put themselves on a global scale once again. And this could be a serious contender for viewership and eyes in short order.
Yes. What about you, Jesse? What were you heard of?
I was really excited about it. I was kind of worried about what was going to happen with the NWA. They lost Ricky Starks. I know they lost a couple of other names. I'm drawing a blank though at the moment.
Yeah, they lost Eddie Kingston.
Yeah. And I don't know what Thunder Rosa's relationship with them is now, but of course she's kind of doing her own thing with Mission Pro. So I'm glad that it gives the NWA something to do. Like I was really worried about how they were going to come out of this. I'm happy about that, and I'm also happy for some exposure for wrestling I haven't seen. I'm not super familiar. I'm in the Midwest, so I'm not super familiar with UWN, but anything that gets me more wrestling is a good thing. And I'm really looking forward to this and excited to see what they bring and excited to learn about new wrestlers, new luchadors. It's just a win-win-win for me.
Yeah, absolutely. To one of your points, Rosa has been on social media asking fans who they want to see her defend the title against. So she's taking kind of that Cody Rhodes approach, and that sounds to me like she's planning at a time for this announcement so that she have some opponents lined up for some of these broadcasts.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Even in the press release, they mentioned that it does look like the NWA champions are going to be defending these titles on these shows. So it's going to be fantastic to see Thunder Rosa defend this title in such a large platform. Also, a few unique tidbits. This should be broadcast, the broadcast in Spanish. That means they're probably going to have a Spanish commentary team, very exciting, and that means they're going to be able to reach a wider audience. And also Thunder Studios, they are an emerging media company based out of Long Beach, California, and they've done entertainment and live event industries as far as production services in the U.S. and northern Mexico. So there is some Mexico ties in this, and that means, we never know, could really branch out to other areas, and also the partnerships could mean that they could get this. Again, I think it's a wonderful thing for fans of course, the NW in a while, and for any West Coasters that are big fans of the United Wrestling Network, it seems like a very good and a great opportunity for more wrestling, which is really what we're all here for, right? That's really we have jobs because
that's my raison d'etre, more wrestling.
Well, speaking of more wrestling, I mean the clock does not stop. A little bit more about this week in MLW.
Yeah, so this week in MLW, we got some more underground goodness. For a lot of people like myself, it was almost impossible to see underground when it originally aired. So it's really exciting to see that come back around. Our first match of the Guerrero, who was Amazing Red, defeated Christopher Daniels and Super Crazy with a standing shooting star press. It was really amazing. Afterwards, Super Crazy got pissed and he tried to pull off Fuego's mask, and it was some real fun Rudo work. I mean, like you've heard me mention, that's like one of my favorite Rudo moves, to pull at the mask, and so I enjoyed that. And then afterwards, our final match of the night, we had Kojima defeating Vampiro. This was the first match with Vampiro since Raven started to call him out on Underground. And this was like a very violent, intense match. I missed out on this era of Vampiro, so it's really interesting getting to see this side of him. And it's really got me feeling the anticipation of new documentary, Vampiro, Nail in the Coffin, coming out in limited theaters September 4th and on video demand September 8th.
I feel I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah. And speaking of MLW news, I think you have some more news about Court Bauer's statement, don't you, Miranda?
Yes, so it was posted on social media, but also mentioned on MLW.com. Court Bauer wrote a statement alluding to possibly restarting shows again. There's been a few pictures up of the Fusion set that look very fantastic, but he's had a website and which he quoted saying, "I've been very encouraged by how the UFC, NBA, the NHL, top-ranked boxing, dance and matchroom boxing have managed Operation Start." It's a very vague, open, but it does make it seem like he is watching what other companies are doing and maybe looking at how he could utilize some of those practices in restarting MLW Fusion. That's another, those weekly shows were fantastic. They used to just film one. I went to one in Dallas that felt like 5 hours, almost 5 hours. And they had content that they use, so it could easily be a 1 day or 2 day that they film, and then they have material for several months. But they've also been very mindful and very adamant to have a safe space for their wrestlers to perform. And so if they do seem like they're looking at what other industries and other leagues are doing in order to have these safe environments for wrestling, then we could be one step closer to seeing MLW Fusion back.
That's very exciting.
Yeah,
I do. In addition to them having done good things about keeping the wrestlers safe, they've also done good things with their social media and their YouTube in particular to keep the wrestlers on brand. We talked a bit last week about the Pulp Fusion, and they've done a couple other things. So I really want to just kind of circle back around. And merch. They've constantly made new merch available for all of their wrestlers. So I just want to give some more props and kudos to MLW. We haven't been able to talk about you a lot, so when we do, we're going to make it good.
Yes, come back. We can talk about you. That's the agreement. You come back, and we'll talk about it. Deal?
Absolutely.
Deal.
Yep. Well, we do have some wrestling coming back. New Japan is having some matches as part of their strong card coming out fairly soon that Brendan has some.
So if I'm reading the dates right, you will be able to watch this the same day that this show is on the air. It's supposed to be on Friday. It's been the tradition. They feature some other people in tag team matches during the undercard of the tournament. And so there's a real banger that I wanted to mention, which is TJP, ACH, and Alex Zane are going to be teams. So obviously, very door. We talk about a few times. And if you only watch one match, this is probably it's going to be top of this.
All right, thank you so much for that. A real quick update, Impact Wrestling. We had Willie Mack return to action. We haven't seen him in the ring in a few weeks since his rematch against Chris Bay for the X Division Championship. He went up against Eric Young. This was a match based on principle because Eric Young took out his dear friend, Rich Swann, not once, but twice. So Willie Mack on principle started to beat up Eric Young outside of the ring, actually in the backstage area, and brought Young into the ring and challenged him to a match. It was an effort, losing. Eric Young continuing his strong streak back at Impact Wrestling, but it was a great match, and this is smack talking every match and see his aggression, see him not caring for nothing. Really just Eric Young. But Eric Young, you know, he's really come back to Impact Wrestling as a new man, kind of very crazed. So it's going to be very hard to him, but it was great to see Willie Mack back on TV. And then we have a few announcements for Emergence. So a 2-week event, Impact Wrestling, will be starting next week. We did get an announcement that we're going to get a triple threat match for the X Division Championship. Someone that we just talked about, TJP, will be in this match versus Chris Bay, the reigning champion, versus Rohit Raju. So that's going to be really interesting, really building a story between Chris Bay and TJP for the last few weeks. And it's going to lead up to this. So if you're looking for a fantastic match to watch in the next few weeks, especially next week, next Tuesday on Impact, this will be the one to watch. We also got, and this is going to be a little different, because this is going to be in the realm of Wrestle. If you don't know what Wrestle House is, you need to do it. And actually, y'all can't see me, but I'm doing big hands say Wrestle House because it's something in and of itself. But a match that we on this show have talked, we really wanted to watch, and we are going to get Taya Valkyrie with Kylie Ray next week. So, granted, it may not be the athletic match we're looking for. Maybe it will be. But if you've not been prone to see Wrestle House, it is a reality show within Impact Wrestling where a group of Impact wrestlers, you know, deal with the trials and tribulations of living together. So this is going to have a lot of shenanigans in place. But, hey, we're getting Taya Valkyrie versus Kylie Ray, and I'm not mad at that. I actually think it'll be fun, even if it is a bit more comedic. Maybe it will lead to more of a serious match later on, but, again, 2 really cool matches announced. Several other matches have been announced for Emergence, but if you are a Lucha Libre fan, these are the 2 to watch out for.
Absolutely.
And in our final story, we do have an update we talked about last week regarding fan design face mask contest from Lucha Central and lucha-mask.com.
Yeah, that's right. The contest committee had a really hard time reviewing all the designs and going through and picking the best, but they wanted to extend their thanks to everybody that submitted a design, and in the end, they chose 5 designs. You can go to luchacentral.com. Right at the top of the page, there's a mask design contest. Click on that. Voting ends today, so you'll want to get out there and vote quickly. But as a token of gratitude for your vote, at the end, you can enter a raffle for one of 3 free pay-per-view passes for this Sunday's VXS Wrestling pay-per-view event on Fight. So get on there and check that out. Participate.
Wow, that's cool. So 5. Originally, they were only 3. Is that correct?
That's because
correct.
The quality of entry is so good. So congratulations to the 5 of you that got through. Do not, if you didn't get through, do not feel bad like yours is inferior. The choice was hard, as they said. So congratulations on making them really have to sweat and figure this out. Now it's up to us. Have you voted?
Yes.
I need to go vote.
I'm not.
I've voted. Yeah, I have.
Okay, I need some time. So I will definitely vote before voting. I really want to so I'm going to just take my time, look at all of the submissions, and then make the best choice. Well, everyone, you made it to the end of another edition of the Lucha Libre podcast in English. If you haven't already noticed, I know some things that we say may sound strange, but they're all in English, I promise you. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to go to luchacentral.com, centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. And you can also follow Lucha Central on social media. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Lucha Central. And on Twitter, you can at the CentralCom. And of course, there is the YouTube page. There you can find a lot of great content, matches and interviews, events, all of that available on Central YouTube page. Now, before we get into our own medias, I do have to plug this week's Trio's name. We do have some feedback from our good friend Emmett, who has usually reached out to us via YouTube, but Emmett Brown. He got me on Instagram, so thank you so much, Emmett.
Excellent.
He didn't message me. I feel left out.
He hasn't personally messaged me yet, so.
Yeah. Well, I posted a clip of our show from last week, and he commented on it. He's still into exercise, and of course, he says, he did, give us some shout-outs. He says, yourself, Dusty, and Mr. Who makes my Fridays a bit more enjoyable. Keep up the great work, and I'll keep submitting cheesy names. So thank you.
Oh, that's
thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah, thank
now,
you.
His submissions are, what kind of cheesy names? Well, we have Who, Two Guerreros. I can't even say that with a straight face.
I may need to make a shirt out of that.
Yes.
We also have 3 Lucha Doors Down, as in
wow.
3 Lucha Doors Down, yes. And Lucha Apocalypse Now. Okay, and now we a recommendation or a name from Johnny on Facebook. He suggested Team Espíritu de Lucha, which is very nice as well. So thank you.
Wow, yeah.
I like that. It's very fancy, very formal. Espíritu de Lucha. That's I feel like that's just a nickname. Someone may take that.
Yeah.
If we were a true trio, that would be the one we would probably use. But hey, thank you, Emmett. Thank you to Johnny. We will still be taking your recommendations. Please to reach out with. And so we'll start off with you. Where can I find you? I'm
on Instagram at Dusty Murphy and Facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brand listeners find you.
I am on Instagram and Twitter, 321 T-shirt guy. It's pretty well established. You can much quicker get a hold of me on Twitter. I love me some wrestling Twitter. I will try and respond if you go to Instagram, but it's really more Miranda's terrace right there.
We all have. I am now on Twitter, Brendan and Dusty. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook at #Miranda, #spelled out. Feel free to let us know your on the show. Let us know suggestions you have for trios, suggestions for topics and discuss in the future. And also, while you're listening, don't forget to subscribe to a podcast platform. Rate, view us, so we know how well we're doing or not. What you like about our show, what you don't like. But we did this not only for the love of Lucha, but for the love of all of you. So thank you so much for it. And yes, we made it to the end of another edition of the Weekly Podcast. And don't forget to join us next week for Death and Brendan again.